Hi, welcome back to Grains in Small Places, and today I'm going to show you how I make a sourdough discard Swiss cake roll, and it's really good. Let me show you how. So this is Bubbles, Meat Bubbles. That's what we call our sourdough discard. And I switched Bubbles over to 100% whole grain, fresh milled flour, probably about 7 months ago. So the beginning of this year, and it's now the end of August. So I used to have it all be white flour, but now it is all whole grain. I wanted to show you how sourdough and freshly milled wheat can be used together. And I found this great book on Amazon. In that book is where I found this recipe, and I found a whole bunch of other recipes. I will link that book below for you, so if you want to check it out. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with 4 eggs, and we're going to divide them up. We're going to use the whites, and we're going to use the yolks. So let me get that started. So with my mixer, I love the fact that I have the option of doing 2 separate bowls, so that I can do things like this where I have 2 parts. And it's okay if you break the yolks. 4. Little shell in here, but a little trick for that is if you have the other shell, kind of sticks right to it and comes out. Okay, let me wash my hands real quick. I'm definitely not an egg separating expert, nor am I a baking expert. I'm just showing you how I do the things. So I'm going to set the egg whites aside, and I'm going to pull out my mixer. This is a Bosch compact mixer, and I love it. I will put a link below if you're interested in taking a look at it. But I used to have a KitchenAid, and this by far fits in my small space better, and I just think it does a better job. And the bowl comes in and out easily, which is absolutely my favorite part, because my KitchenAid mixer, every time I mixed dough or anything, I couldn't get the bowl out. So seems trivial, but it made a big deal to me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix the egg yolks for probably about 2 minutes on high, medium high. Mine only goes up to 4, so I'm probably going to go ahead and do it on 3 and then switch it up to 4. Okay, it's just about at the 2 minutes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2/3 cup of sugar very slowly to my egg yolks as it's mixing. Custard look to it, and then I'm going to put a cup of my starter in. Last night what I did was I wanted some starter for, we're actually going to make some sourdough discard tortillas for dinner, but I also wanted some starter for this, so last night I went ahead and put some in each container to make it easier for me. And then after I'm done, I just need a little bit of one of these, and then I can feed it for whatever I want to make tomorrow. 1 cup of the starter. I'm just going to get it right out of the jar. And I should have had just about 1 cup in the jar. When I fed it last night, I wanted to make sure that it was pretty close to what I needed. Even these little scraping bits that I have left in my jar, this would be enough for me to go ahead and feed it for tomorrow. So I'll go ahead and do that later, and I'll show you what I do to feed it. Okay, so I have just under a cup of the starter. It calls for a full cup, but this is what I have. So I'm going to stick that just right in, just slowly. So I put about half of that in, and then I'm going to mix that in. And we don't want to overmix this because we want it to be light and fluffy like a sponge. So what I'm going to do now is I have 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I'll put a link to the book below with the recipe. I'll also type out the ingredients for the recipe. And I'm going to put that into this. What I love about this recipe is it just calls for 1 cup of the starter. I don't have to add any extra flour. I don't have to mix anything up the night before other than feeding my starter to make sure I have enough. But I love that, and it also uses a large amount of my starter for when I'm getting a lot of extra and I need to get rid of some, or I haven't made pancakes in a while with it, because that's what we use for it most often. So I'm going to put that in. Okay, I don't want to overmix this, but I do need to make sure that it gets all incorporated. Okay, so it's not completely mixed, but I think I'm going to go ahead and mix it with spatula here. This is what I have. It's not fully incorporated yet, but I'm just going to kind of mix the egg yolks around with the rest of the ingredients. As you can see, I want to show you here as I'm mixing it around, it's very airy, and it's going to get even more airy when I put in the egg whites. So what I'm going to do is set this aside, and instead of using my paddle, I'm going to get my whisk attachment that came with my mixer here. And we're going to go back to the egg whites that we have here that we separated earlier. You could use optional cream of tartar, which I'm going to go ahead and use that. It just helps make the egg whites incorporate better and turn into those peaks that you want. I'm going to use just about 1/4 teaspoon. It's actually not a requirement for the recipe, so you don't have to do that part. You can just whisk the egg whites. But I'm just going to put that in there. And then we're going to whisk those together on high. I'm going to let it go a little bit before I put it on the full speed because I don't want it to spray everywhere. This does come with a splatter guard. I almost never use it. So while that whisks, I'm going to go ahead and get parchment paper, and I'm going to line my sheet pan with that. This recipe calls for a jelly roll pan. I don't have any special pans. I only have like a 9x13 baking sheet. I think it's like a 1/4 baking sheet. This is also the biggest pan that I can fit in my oven in the RV here. So get some parchment paper for that. This time, instead of having an overlap, I am going to cut it to size. And you really do want the parchment paper for this because you're going to have to flip this cake out for the roll part of it. So you don't want to just spray the pan and bake it right on here. It really helps to put the parchment paper on there. I'm just watching my egg whites. Make sure that they don't overmix. I might need to go back to kindergarten to learn how to cut with scissors. So I've got that cut to size. Let that sit there in the meantime, and you're going to want to preheat the oven to 375 degrees, and it's going to only bake for about 8 minutes. This is where we're at right now. They're not quite ready. We're getting closer. I love watching the transformation of the egg white. Okay. Alright. So that's pretty stiff. That's what it looks like in the bowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 1/3 of this mixture. Let me move this out of the way. Another thing I love about this is it's so lightweight. I can move it with one hand. It's not in my way. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to take about 1/3 of the egg whites, ish, and I'm going to fold them in to my chocolate mixture and gently, as to not take all the air out and break all that work that we just did, but I still want it incorporated. Okay, I'm going to take the rest of that. I'm going to put that all in there. You do not want to over bake this cake. It will crack when you go to roll it if it's over baked. So when you're baking it, just keep an eye on it. 8 minutes seems to work perfectly for me. I do have a small little oven, so it may be different from your oven. Okay, you can see I'm still mixing the chocolate in with the egg, just kind of folding it over and over and over. Until I can't see really very many swirls of different colors left. It becomes more of a uniform color. Also, I don't want to be too aggressive and stir too much. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to take this and pour that out on my sheet pan. And I'm going to put it on my sheet pan, try to put it as evenly as I can. I'm so excited for this dessert because our family really loves this dessert. The first time I made it with a coconut cream because we do have some dairy sensitivities in our family. So I was trying to make it like that. The family didn't really love, or I'm sorry, all the family members didn't really love the coconut flavor. So today I'm going to fill this with the cream that I made for my oatmeal cream pies. If you haven't watched that video yet, I'll put a link in the description and a card maybe up here somewhere so you can take a look at that after this video. Or you can just use whipped cream, whatever cream you want to fill this with. So I'm going to put that in for about 8 minutes. So while that's baking, I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is cleaned off, and I'm going to get a small kitchen towel and some parchment paper so that I can flip it out when it's done. So let me go do that real quick. I have my towel here. I usually do this on my table, so I hope there's enough space here so I can show you. If you don't have dogs in your house, you can probably just lay your cake right on here. But we have dogs, tend to have dog hair. So we do have, I don't want the dog hair in the food, so I'm just going to put parchment paper here. Actually, I'm going to do it that way. Just because no matter how much I wash it, there may still be a dog hair or something like that. So I just put the parchment paper here. I'm going to get this out of the oven, and we're going to pretty much loosen the edges with a butter knife And then I'm going to flip it right onto this upside down. So I'll show you what I do there. This recipe could probably be used for any roll cake. This is the favorite one of our family, but probably in the next month or two, I'm going to try out some pumpkin ones with like a cream cheese filling. I can use my homemade cream cheese for that, but that's something I'm going to try. If it works out, then I'll probably put a video out on that also. While that's baking, I'm going to go ahead and feed bubbles. So all I do to feed bubbles is put a little bit of water, filtered water. I milled some of this a little while ago. Some of this just fresh ground flour. I'm going to put it in there. I did weigh everything at the beginning and to make sure that the water and flour ratio was correct. But now I've done it so often that I know the consistency that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to mix this straight in the jar. And I like to mix mine up almost as a solid ball. I think there is a name for that. Got 12 seconds left on this. You want to bake it till it's not super jiggly anymore, and that's how you know it's done. Okay. Let's check. So it still has some wobble to it. I'm going to go ahead and put it back in for one more minute. You do want a little wobble, but if it's really jiggly and raw looking, I'm putting it back in for a little while longer. Okay, I ground a little more flour to feed bubbles. Okay, that's ready. Let me just stir this in real quick. I just want to show you that the sourdough doesn't need to be scary. It doesn't need to be intimidating. Once you get the hang of it, you will start to understand the science behind it and the whys and the do's and the don'ts. So I like my sourdough to be kind of like a solid. I'm just going to stick it in a smaller jar for now. And plenty of people will leave it in here even though it looks messy. It's fine. I like to put it into a new jar every once in a while. That way I don't have to worry about a mold buildup or anything like that. So I want to just make sure that even though this is a drier sourdough starter, I want to make sure that there's no actual dry flour showing. Okay, so when I put my lid on, I take my mason jar and I flip my lid upside down so that it can breathe. So a lot of people's issues with sourdough starters sometimes I find is they're putting the lid on too tight and it's not getting any fresh air in. This needs to capture some of the wild yeasts and things like that in the air. So I put the lid on upside down and I put my jar on. Keeps bugs out and dust out, but it helps it to be able to properly eat. I let this sit in there a little long while I was feeding him. It should be okay. Okay, we're not jiggling like that anymore. I'll drop it. Okay, so here's that. I'm just going to set it here. Okay, I'm going to run my knife all the way around the edge. That way I don't have anything sticking. This is like literally a sponge. The texture of this cake is amazing. I can't even explain it. Pretty much immediately I'm going to take this, and it is still very hot. I'm going to take it and I'm going to flip it upside down on my parchment paper and hopefully it doesn't destroy it. So here goes. Okay, I did a little bit, put a little crease here. That's okay. I'm going to just peel off the parchment paper. You can see it's still hot. I imagine you can see the steam. It crunched a little, but I think it'll be okay. And I could use that one right back on there. Okay, I'm going to stick another piece of parchment paper on that. And I'm going to attempt to flip this without burning myself. It is hot. Okay. Yay! It was a success. Make sure this isn't sticking. I'm going to get a new piece of that as well. Hopefully that wasn't a mistake, getting new ones. What you're going to want to do now is, starting from the shorter end, you're going to want to roll the cake up. And you want to do this while it's still hot so it doesn't crack on you. And I'm going to leave the parchment paper in here so that it doesn't stick to itself. Just doing the best I can here. Okay, so we have it like that. Now I'm going to let this cool, and I'm going to just set it aside here. I'm going to let that cool, and as I let that cool, I'm going to go ahead and slice up some strawberries. The fresh strawberries in this take it over the top delicious. Okay, I'm going to just wash the strawberries up here. To just cut off the tops and just make nice little pretty slices of strawberry. Okay, that looks like enough. I like to cut a little extra of the tops off because my dogs like to have the tops of the strawberries for treats. I'm going to set these aside also while I wait for the cake to cool down. I put that in the fridge for a little bit, so we're going to unroll this gently. Okay. Doesn't look super pretty when it's unrolled, but that's okay. This is the inside. So I have my handy dandy Christmas spatula, and I'm going to just fill this with the cream that I made. Again, you can use any cream. You can use whipped cream, or you can use the cream that I'm making here, or that I made here. Just going to spread that as evenly as possible. And I'm going to try to make it a little thin on the part that's going to end up being the part that rolls over the top. And then we're going to put some sliced strawberries in the cake. And those look really pretty when you slice into the roll. That looks good. I have a little left over, and I've got people over here asking for some. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just take this and we're going to roll up back how it was. And it did split on me a little bit in a couple places. But that's okay, it'll still be delicious. It did split on me over here, I'm not gonna lie. I'm guessing the reason it split on me is because I left it in the oven a little longer. You saw when I was feeding Bubbles. I should have pulled it out immediately, but that's okay. It's still gonna look good. I can serve it from this side. And I'm gonna put this in the fridge. I'm gonna cover it with a little bit of saran wrap and put it in the fridge for about a half an hour for it to set, and then it'll be ready to eat. Thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen today as I made the Swiss cake roll here with the sourdough starter. If there's anything that you found that you liked in this video, just give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. And if you'd like to see me do more sourdough recipes, especially the discard recipes, because that's our favorite way to use our sourdough. If you'd like to see what content we're going to put out every week, then go ahead and subscribe and you'll get to see what recipes and adventures our family is up to. Thank you for stopping by Grains in Small Places. Goodbye.